Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning to my show, William Wallace for America. Today is my Finding Freedom Forum. Almost got to stumble on it there for a minute. Kind of like I feel that our freedoms and liberties are being stumbled on in our country. And I invited a guest today who's going to be on in just a little bit, about 2 or 3 guests from now. And when I said find freedom, he said, "You really think we're losing freedom in America?" And I said, yes, if you listen to the people on this forum, you're going to find lots of ways that we're losing freedom. With me in this first interview is Angelo Soto. Angelo, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a cool 100 degrees out here in Virginia, but it's nothing compared to Michigan, where I am or originally from, where the lowest is about -12.
Well,
So we're good.
right now, my studio, I'm outside of New Orleans. We're 112 degrees heat index today, and I've got the lights on me from the studio, so it was a little warm getting in here. But we're gonna cool down in a minute. But let's heat this thing up real quick because we have about 14 minutes left for you. I
Yeah.
would like to find out what your credentials are, because I know it from meeting you at several events, and I'm extremely excited to have those credentials represented on my show by you. And I'd like to let you introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. So my name is Angelo Soto. I got a degree in political science and business administration from Eastern University, located in Wayne, Pennsylvania. And then from there, I worked in the Pennsylvania House of Reps, where I gave a speech on critical race theory. I have also worked on several different political campaigns as a comms director, social media manager, and then I also worked as an intern for the Heritage Foundation out in DC. And then I'm currently working as an intern for the Family Foundation out here. So
So
this
where
will be
do
in my last.
I met you at Turning Point out at AmeriFest. Where do you think freedoms are being lost in America?
I would say education primarily. Um, a school does not have a right to indoctrinate children. It is unethical and it is not moral. The parent is the sole caretaker of the child and has a right to be involved in that child's education because of that parent gave birth to that child, not the school system.
So now I know when we talked on the phone, you had a whole list of other areas, but you think that's the
Yeah,
primary way, and I would agree with you, because what's happening in our education system is, I really believe that they're dumbing down children to American history, to
yeah,
the values of freedom, to the values of liberty, to the things that unites us, and they're focusing more on the things that divide us, not just by taking parents out of the equation, but also by what they teach, in our schools. And that's a whole topic for a longer interview later. But is that the only reason why you think we're losing our freedoms?
I would say we're also losing freedom in God. This country, the one nation under Christ, it is under God. We don't worship government. We don't worship the governed, who are political parties. We may believe in Republicans or Democrats rather, but our sole caretaking would be under God. We're not one nation under Biden, under Trump. Um, so yeah,
I'm going to step away from for 1 second on where you are with that. On a parallel note, I don't know that we're being taught to worship or not worship God as much as we're told, or worship government, we'll say, as much as we're being told to rely on government as if it were a God. So it's not
yeah,
like we're being told to worship government, but because we're teaching everybody to rely on government in multiple ways, not just through, and look, people can say it's through the welfare system all they want, but we're being told to rely on government because they're going to bail us out. They're bailing our country out constantly by raising the national debt. There's lots of ways
Yeah.
that we can talk about that. But I think what ends up happening ultimately, to your point, is that we end up relying on government the same way we would rely on a faith to get us through the hard times. Is that what you're kind of referring to a little bit?
Yeah, I think that we have put this almost cultist mentality within the Biden administration. And I won't say cult, I would say almost ideologue, I would say. It's disturbing, and it's a problem, I think. So yeah.
Okay, so we got education, you got God, and where else do you think we're losing our freedoms?
I would say the whole transgender and gender mutilation of children. It's disturbing, and it's sad. And I worry about the next generation of this country. I do.
And also, to your point, I think what's happening is it's not even so much. And yes, it is the mutilation of children, but on a bigger scale, it's using that narrative to distract us from what's really going on in our country. I mean, the overspending, the narratives, the ideologies, the division that they're doing by creating all of these other narratives to divide us up so they can get away with their bad spending practices, et cetera, et cetera. Would that be something that you're referring to also?
Yes. We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We are sending that's not our war. We have other things to deal with in this country. We have a border. We have a infrastructure that's crumbling within low income schools, specifically in my hometown in Detroit. It is very disturbing. It's sad. We shouldn't be giving millions of dollars to a country that's aiding China, essentially. And China is going to be aligning with Russia. That's what we are fueling, and that's a problem to me.
What do you think that we can do as Americans that we can do to stop it, protect it, and be able to maintain the freedoms that we have, but even possibly get back the freedoms that we've lost? What do you think that we should do?
Well, I think that from a local level basis, we have to, start at the school board level for education, get involved, become a delegate precinct uh, uh, person. And also, we have to we have to call our government officials and say, no, we're not going to stand for this, and run for office, get involved, take a stand. We are, as young people, we are the last stand against, I would say, the left. And I would also say we are the firewall between the government as well as getting our country back on track.
I think everything you said is about waking people up, telling people, hey, if we don't wake up and be more aware of what's happening and being involved from the ground. I mean, like, I loved your example of being involved on a precinct level, because when you're involved in the precincts and the voting process, that's the first thing that we can do to show government that we're paying attention and that we are watching our elections and that we want to take our elections back over.
Yes.
Would that be a good example?
Yes. We have to recognize that if we can't vote within elections, which are the bedrock of our country, and understanding that everything we vote for affects the 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 country. It affects it, and if we don't have safeguarded elections, and if both sides don't trust those said elections, then we don't have a country. We don't have a nation, I don't think. So,
No, I'm right there with you. We need more people to realize that our country is being stolen through the ballot box, and not just by elected officials who are maybe possibly involved in stealing elections, but also in local government. We've got elected officials getting elected that after they get elected, they don't listen to the people, and it's hard to get them out because people aren't actively going to the polls to vote them out. So there's lots of different ways. I like your examples. So Angela, what are you doing yourself to protect freedom and liberty in America?
so I am trying to get involved in local uh, parties within Michigan, and keeping in touch with people there, and just making sure that our country is what our forefathers fought for, what they fought for, what they understood, that the that our founding fathers were not old men. They were like 20 years old.
Right,
They may
exactly.
have
I'm glad you're
worn
bringing that up.
they 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 may have worn powdered wigs, but they knew what was wrong even before I was born. You were born. And I think Ronald Reagan said it best. He said, "If we ever forget we are one nation under God, we are a nation gone under." That is what is happening right now. That is what is occurring within our nation, is that we have folks on both sides of the aisle who are completely dissipating and squandering on what our founding fathers fought for. So yeah.
Wow, Angela, you have it. And you're one of those young people in that younger generation that was probably as old as our founding fathers were at the time. And so you certainly can, I guess, understand not only that you're getting it, but understand what it was like to be that age at that time and have this passion for our country in your heart. How long have you had that passion?
I would say my whole life. I have always been interested in the political realm of things. And I do give credit to um, just the fact that I was raised within a Christian household to uphold those values, those Judeo-Christian values that are within this nation. That I care about this country. This country isn't. It's not dead yet. It's not gone. We have to stand up and work together on both sides of the aisle, but not compromise on issues that would harm the American people within
That's
this
right.
country.
That's right. So, what else are you doing before our next guest comes on? What else are you doing to help protect freedom and liberty in America?
So, like I said, I am involved within the Family Foundation as an intern. So I am working with them, but I will be leaving this week. So that's going to be the end of that. But I do want to run for office one day. Not sure what yet, but I'll have to keep that for my announcement at some point. But I think that one last thing I'll say is that America is truly the greatest country on this earth. If someone believes that America isn't, then that's sad. We have to recognize that we are a valued nation and a country under God. We have to get back to our forefathers' statements and mission of this country.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love hearing that you've got a plan, that not only have you been building your resume, to be able to, to get to where you can have the experience with these organizations that are also promoting freedom, and experience with other organizations that are doing things to help promote and teach other people, but you also have an idea of where you want to go. You're going back home. I'm assuming you were doing this internship in DC and you're heading
Yes.
back home. Is there another organization that you're going to work on back where you are to help promote freedom and liberty?
Potentially, I am still looking right now, but I truly give all glory to God. If it wasn't for Him who opened all these doors, you know, gave me that passion, gave me that fire that I care about this country, that we have to get back to our values. We have to get back to holding people accountable in DC. No one is ever held accountable. It's it's a problem, and so yeah.
So is that something that you see? While we're waiting for our next guest,
Yeah.
we'll continue a little bit. Is that something you've seen in DC yourself?
Yeah, I went to a Michigan agricultural meeting, and Rep. Stabenow, who had said that, we're fighting for you, is a lie. For her to say that, you know, you want electric vehicles for people who can't even afford that, and then say that you are for the people of Michigan, that's a lie.
That's right.
You're not.
Well, Angela, it sounds like you're wide awake. I love it. Our next guest is up. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it, Angela. I'm gonna keep up with you, and we'll follow up down the road and do some more. Okay.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a good
Thank
one.
you very
God bless
much,
you.
Angela. You have a great day. All right. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey, John, how are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Good. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing fantastic, man. One of the things I love about talking with you, and because people don't realize I get the opportunity to see at some events past and coming up. You're always relaxed. You always look like you had a great day at the beach.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You wouldn't believe what my schedule today was like, but you are my third conference call or Zoom meeting, and I still have one more with Mike Lindell in a couple hours. So,
Well, I get it. I got 6 of you today, so you're number 2. So John, let's let the people, before I ask you the questions for the forum. What's your background? Where are you working? What areas are you working in?
well, I'm retired. For 15 years, I was retired, and the last 12 I really enjoyed until the last 2 when I got this calling to do what I do now. And for 18
Right.
months, it's been a 7-day, 24-hour, a 7-day week, 24
Pretty
hours a
much.
day, year round. But I did telecommunications. I have a master's in communications. I read people's body language. I get to know how people think. I worked on tens of thousands of cell towers, microwaves, and radios across 14 states for US West, Mountain Bell, and Quest. Yeah, so that's kind of what my background was. I did some firefighting. I was an engineer, a lieutenant in Westminster, Colorado, state 1 and 2 certified for several years.
You've traveled around a little bit, so you've seen a lot of America. It sounds like you've been on the working end. You've been doing some traveling. Where do you? This is our first big question. Where do you think that freedom is under attack in America? And before you answer that, I like to mention this on all my shows because I regularly get told by people or asked by people, say, well, where is freedom? they don't see freedoms being under attack in America. They think of freedoms as, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. They don't realize sometimes, and that's why I do this show, that our freedoms and liberties are being attacked in the areas that are under the rocks. For the local council the local councils, the local governments, the rules, the regulations, bureaucracy. There's so many areas where our freedoms and liberties are being under attack. And it's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's everybody's got to live by these things. So where, John, do you think that freedom is under attack in America?
Well, Bill, I can answer that question with a question. Where is it not under attack right now in America?
Good one.
Sorry.
Good one.
I don't think we have enough time for me to tell you where it's under attack. It's so many places. We're censored. I just got a 2-day suspension on Facebook again yesterday for posting the truth. It wasn't 2 weeks, but I'm back on now. I use it because I communicate to a lot of people, and I posted some information that was factual, true, professional, polite, and Christian-like. Those are the 3 rules I follow, and no reason why I should have been censored, but I was. So that's the latest as of just yesterday. Our council meetings, we've been doing 2 a month for 18 months. We have more people coming into our chamber in Sandoval County than all 33 counties in the entire state combined in New Mexico. And we still cannot get our commissioners, whether they're on the right or the left, to do anything that is right. And so we're fighting that. We're fighting with the House and the Senate up in Santa Fe. Just a recent legislation. We had total excellent arguments on many of the laws they tried to pass. That's why we have 6 referendums that we're trying to get using the U.S. Constitution reversed so that people can go to the polls next year and vote on these laws that they're trying to put in effect around abortion, around transgender, around election integrity. There's 2 of those, and so on and so on and so on. I'll stop right there. Did I answer your question?
In other words, what I'm hearing is et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what's interesting is you talked about getting some laws overturned. Are those pertain to election? Any of those pertain to election laws that Arizona might be facing right now?
Yes, absolutely. We're working on HB4 and SB 180. You can look those up. But for the purposes of this call, they're around election integrity, so-called improvements, which are not really improving much of anything. They're taking things away from us. I'll give you one great example. Not being able to request a public record that I pay for with my taxes in the state of New Mexico via a IPRA request for a cast vote record. Now, Sandoval County was the only one that got the cast vote record successfully out of 33 counties in the last election. However, they're trying to prevent us from getting that record. Why do they want us to prevent that, Bill? Do you know the answer to that question?
Right.
Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Why? Because they're trying to hide something. That's
exactly.
Why.
They don't want us to show what we find. And we're only dealing with facts. None of this is conspiracy. None of this is hearsay. None of this is pie in the sky. None of this is, I heard it from my neighbor.
Right.
All of this is black and white. And they don't want us going through the information that we've gone through the last 2 years, multiple elections, and showing the anomalies, the irregularities, the patterns that are impossible to reproduce election after election, year after year. Some of them are almost identical. It's just not possible. So they don't want us to do that. That's just one example of one of the things embedded in these election bills, where they want us to just take what they carte blanche, rubber stamped, and said, this is it, and this is what you're going to live by.
What's amazing is, as many times as people like you and other people that I know are getting the facts out there on where our elections are being stolen, where the problems are, the news narrative media keeps telling us, they're safe, they're secure, so much, in fact, that I even have a lot of Republican friends that will tell me, no, they're safe. And I understand, I'm in Louisiana, and there's a lot of people tell you how safe and secure our elections are here. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I'm saying it that way because there's so many people that just pay attention to the narratives on one side or the other. The reality is, when you look at, like you're saying, the numbers that you can prove that are undeniable around the country, can't we say that whether we don't see it in Louisiana or we don't see it in one place, the fact that we're seeing these anomalies or these problems all over our country should tell us that we need to keep a closer eye on our elections? And I say it simply like that because there's so many people that are in a kind of a gray area that either don't want to believe it, or it's easier for them to believe a soft lie than it is a harder truth.
Blinders.
Right, exactly, right.
Head in the sand.
Yeah.
These are people that will wake up eventually. It's inevitable. The silent majority is still the majority, but they're not so silent because we're waking people up. We are raising awareness and we are spreading the word every day, and it's growing across the nation like fire.
So what can we do? What do you think the American people can do to help stop this or even protect freedoms in America?
Well, just get involved. As simple as with your local council or your school boards or whatever it is you want to do, your church. I don't care. I'm involved with the Sandoval County Commission. I'm also involved with the Bernalillo County Commission, which is the third largest in the state, behind Nonana and Santa Fe. And we're number 4, Sandoval County. And the reason why I'm involved in those 2 counties is because there's a couple good commissioners over there in Bernalillo, as there is some also, I think, good commissioners in Sandoval County. And you have to keep working with them. It doesn't happen overnight. We started with 5 people 18 months ago. They've never had this many people attend meetings every 2 weeks for the last 18 months in the history of New Mexico as Sandoval County has. And I'm not kidding. We have more people every meeting than the whole county, all the counties, all 33 of them in the state do on any given day. And that's because the people are getting involved. They're coming to their meetings. They're speaking up. They're exercising their 2-minute First Amendment rights. And it takes some work. It takes some effort. You have to do research. You got to come with the facts. You can't come with hearsay. You can't come with speculation. You cannot be a conspiracy theorist. You have to know what you're talking about. And that takes time, work, and effort. For me, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, year round. My birthday, 4th of July, Christmas, you name it. And I'm not the only one. Trust me, I got people running laps around me that are working harder.
Do you think that, I mean, because you're in New Mexico and you're right next to Arizona, where we've seen, a stolen governor election, I'll say, do you think because of the close proximity, more people are waking up in your area because you're saying that these numbers keep growing, in your area? Is it because they're looking at the neighbor next to them, or is it just because they're paying attention to what's going on in the national news and saying, wait a minute, this can't be? I mean, myself, I look at things like, and look, because I'm informed, I can look at things a different way, but because I can say there's no way that the Bidens are not getting prosecuted, because with all of the facts that we've got out there and the know that it's just being ignored, you got to say at some point, maybe our elections are being ignored. Would that be a way to put it?
I would say that some of that is true, but here in New Mexico, most of it is the efforts that we have put forth at our commissioner meetings on a bi-monthly meeting for 18 months. We have grown from 5 to thousands across all counties and across the nation. Now we have a new organization that we put in and just went public, the nmnetwork.org. That's NM for New Mexico Election Transparency Network. So nmetnetwork.org. Go there and you'll see what we're about. That right there is a nonpartisan nonprofit out of our pockets, Christian base, working for everybody that wants to do the right thing. Don't care what side of the fence you're on. I met with a Democratic commissioner today for an hour and a half, had a great meeting with him talking about things that are going on, drop boxes, voter ID, even electronics we talked about. Okay. And that's my forte.
That's right.
And we're a major clearinghouse for communications. I not only hit our domain, I hit Messenger, Facebook, email, Twitter, Instagram, text messaging, Signal, Telegram, and it's free to everybody. And we went public in the first quarter of this year, and we've grown and grown and grown. Like I said, we started with 5 in Sandoval County. We catch the whole state, all 33 counties, and most of the nation now is on board with some of the things we're doing. We're comprised with just 4 board members. We keep it simple. We have 1 librarian who also does a lot of legal work for us. We have a major library resource on that website. I encourage people to check it. It's just at your fingertips. You can find things that if you go to the Secretary of State's website, it's going to take you an hour if you're lucky to find the needle in the haystack. Where here it will be click on the state map, click on the county, click on your county assessor, click on whatever you want, and boom, you're there in seconds. And then I'm still writing a transparency newsletter when I can, sponsoring our small businesses in the community as well. And we live by this when dealing with evil and corruption that's in the world today. Personally, I feel the best approach is the 3-step approach. And you and I have talked about this before. That stay a step ahead of them. Beat them to the punch. Keep them off balance. Let me ask you this. Does evil ever take a day off?
Never does.
Neither can we. And then remember, our motto is the first 2 words of it. And this came to me at 2:30 in the morning, 18 months ago from up above, woke me up. I had to write it down. We together can and will make a difference. And that is for everybody, the commissioners, for the legislative, for you and I, for anybody, my neighbors. That is the key. We together. If you're about doing the right thing, I'm here to help you any way, shape, or form I can. This organization is all about that. I am so blessed to have the team of people and the patriots I work with every day. It keeps me going.
And that's what you're doing to help fight for freedom in America.
Yeah. And what other people can do is get engaged with some of this, but they can also go out and they can start going to their town meetings. They can go to their commissioner meetings and other places where they can start to do this. This isn't rocket science. We still have voter rolls that need to be cleaned up and dead voters voting. We still have drop boxes that shouldn't exist. We still have voter ID that doesn't exist in the state of New Mexico, and it should. And worst of all, we still have electronics. We should have a paper ballot that goes into a box at night, is counted by a person like you and me, and by 10 o'clock, we know who the winner is. That's how our forefathers planned it 200 years ago.
Exactly.
Never did I hear them say that it should be any different.
Well, what's amazing is, as much as we criticize France for of course, there's always been a joke about criticizing France. One thing they do really right is their elections, where they where they do a hand ballot and they count them, and by the end they take the day off, and before the end of the night, I don't know when the polls close and everything, but they have results then that night. And they do it all by hand. And there's no reason we can't, because the narrative basically tells us, the narratives say, well, there's no way we can get the results. There's way too many ballots to count. The average precinct is less than 1,200 people. And,
let me tell you right now, the best analogy I heard on this was recent from one of our commissioners. I won't mention his or her name, but France did their elections just in the past. They did paper ballots and they hand counted. And by the end of the day, they determined a winner. And they're talking like millions of votes. So it can be done. This should be done this way around the world. Okay. Electronics is an excuse, or an option, I should say, or it gives you the ability to manipulate and change data. I know this. If those tabulators did one thing, took the vote, tripped the trigger, and it said 1 vote, and drop it into a bin. At the end of the day, we pull the bin out and there's 20 votes in there, and you pull the tape and it says 20 and they match. Great. Unfortunately, they don't. There are wireless modems in there. There's Ethernet and internet connections in there. They can be remotely controlled and accessed from a third world over in Indonesia, from Dominion, for example,
right,
to a warehouse that sits in Bernalillo, black, dark, unplugged machines sitting in a warehouse. They can be programmed and changed and updated with software that we don't even know what the software is.
Right.
Nobody in the county can tell you what software we're supposed to be using. First of all, we're not even certified with the software that they are using, so none of our votes should even count. They shouldn't have counted for the last 10 years.
Whatever happened, I might ask you about that news story in Nashville many years ago where there was that explosion in downtown Nashville, and they say that was a warehouse of voting machines.
I don't remember that story, but I see hundreds of stories every month. I might have seen it and forgot it, but it doesn't surprise me.
Well,
how does the Pfizer plant go up in smoke? How does it get hit by a tornado? I don't know. That just happened. are these acts of God or something else? I don't know.
Well,
I'm
what's
not going to
interesting
speculate because I deal with just facts and I can't tell you specifically.
in some of the conventions that we go to and where I've seen you, and when you're talking to people, I mean, I know you've heard the same thing. You hear remarkable stories of election fraud. You hear people all the time talking about, how an election was stolen, or the county commissioner didn't allow somebody to, be present during the counting of the votes or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we hear all these stories about all over the country. I mean, matter of fact, the last symposium you and I went to, we were talking with the same person, that said, "Hey, here's my story about what's going on." And are in your organization, are you all sharing these stories with people?
Yeah, I do. And I talk to people every day. I talk to people in grocery lines, gas stations when I'm pumping my gas, at the car wash. Any opportunity I get where there's a window, I'll kind of jump through that window and talk. I'll just take it as far as I can. I'll be as calm and polite as I can. I'll listen to what they have to say. And once you figure out what it is they want to hear, then I can peel the onion back a little further, and I'll hand them my business card. And I'll say, hey, go to my domain. It's free. Put your email and your phone number there, and we'll send you pushes from time to time. We don't inundate you. You can get off at any time you want. And it's free of charge. And, it's just educating people about how we can make our elections more secure, more transparent, and more fair. So when you and I go vote, I know it's my vote, not
Right.
yours, voting for me. I know that it gets counted, and I know that it was worth my time and effort to go. Whereas lately that hasn't been the case for many Americans. It hasn't been the case for me. This is why we fight the fight. This is why we go day in and day out. This is why I'm looking forward to see you here in about 15 days, up in Springfield for another 12-hour long times 2 days to walk away with some more tools, some more understanding. The good part about last year's summit was everything that we heard was everything we were doing in New Mexico. We were on top of it. We were over the target. And there were many, many states that were way behind. They're trying to wake up. And I brought a 12-page pamphlet. I brought 50 copies. I gave many away to contacts in each state saying, here's what we're doing. Duplicate what we're doing. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to figure out. Just take it. It's free. Use it. Call me if you have questions. And I've received calls from even California. I know that sounds kind of like a slam, but even California has called me with some of the things I've given them to try to work on, because we need to improve in every state in this nation to make this country better. The best is yet to come.
John, I want to go backwards for a second while we're waiting for my next guest to come on. If you got an extra minute,
absolutely.
Going back to the machines, and here's something that I've been saying a lot to people lately. And if you want to share it, you can share it. I'd be honored if you did. I've got Republican friends. I know people that work, at our Secretary of State's office, within our government, the clerks of courts. I know people that work in all these different agencies. And I get a little, feedback sometimes, or I get a little pushback, and they say, well, our elections are safe and secure. Our machines are safe and secure. And like I mentioned earlier, maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they are. But my problem or my thought is that, as I mentioned earlier, when things are going on all over the country, we got to start looking at it. But here's the point that I'm getting to. Do you believe in identity theft?
Of course.
So somebody can actually break into your online accounts and steal your identity, right?
Yes.
Do you believe in credit card theft? Somebody can hack into your credit card, right?
I just had a fraud on my card 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm waiting for the new ones to come in.
So somebody could break into your bank, and then go into your checking account and get basically your money, right?
Right.
Okay. And somebody can hack into your electronic account, so they can hack into the servers at these companies that say they're all safe and secure, and you've got a double, triple encrypted, passcode, super duper, protected, right?
Firewalls.
Firewalls, and then get into it, right?
Yep.
And somebody can steal your home title, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And lastly, You hear these big companies that get these data breaches where they get ransomware and somebody breaks into their databases, super duper triple secured firewall protection,
Right.
all that stuff,
Right.
and they're able to steal, in some cases, like in Louisiana just a couple weeks ago, where our elections are safe and secure, right?
Right.
Did you know that our Department of Motor Vehicles got our database, the Department of Motor Vehicles database got broken into a few weeks ago?
Oh my God, I'm shocked. Are you
Well,
serious?
wait a minute. So I'm gonna go back to that in just a second. So if somebody can hack into a database and ransomware a big company, home title theft, credit card theft, checking account, fraud, all this stuff, what would make anybody believe that nobody wants to hack into our elections?
That's what I call a checkmate argument. A checkmate argument.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you what you have in common in every scenario you mentioned. It's my number one goal. It's electronics. It doesn't matter what it's called. It could
Right.
be Eric, it could be Dominion. I don't care. It's electronics. I spent 33 years in that field. Okay. And I know what electronics have the capability of doing. And we're not even talking AI right now.
Right.
Okay. We're just talking digital and analog, but it's electronics. As long as electronics are involved, I always say that the cheat is in. It can occur. And I'm like Thomas the Apostle. Thomas the Apostle didn't believe that Jesus came back down, rose from the dead, until he appeared in that little room and he says, "Put your finger in my hand, Thomas. It's me." And he did. I am Thomas. I need to see it. I need to do my homework. I need to research it so I deal with the facts. I can spend not hours, not days, weeks, maybe months showing people evidence, showing people what I'm talking about. This isn't hard to find. And it's not just in Sandoval County. It's in the nation, worldwide, probably third world countries as well. I won't go abroad, but it's probably worldwide. And this is how people get selected, not elected. This is why we get in the mess we're in, like we are right now, because elections do get stolen. Now, am I trying to slam my county or my state? No, I'm just trying to state the facts. I am just about trying to make them more secure and make our elections fair.
That's right.
And honest. And I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I could sit on my butt and I could do nothing about it. But my dad who just passed away a few months ago, he taught me. Where you at, Dad? Right there. He taught me.
There you go.
He was still teaching me this 3 words: do what's right. And
right.
When something like this happens, you don't sit back and do nothing. You get up and do something about
That's
it.
right.
And so that's the way I was brought up. That's what I've always done all my life. That's what I try to do. Am I perfect? Far from it. You don't see no holes in my hands. I ain't hanging from no cross. I do the best I can every day to try to help others. I don't care who they are. If they want help and they're about doing the right thing, I'm behind them. That's why I'm a nonpartisan. That's why, I met with a Democratic commissioner today. In 2 more weeks, I meet with a group of Republicans up in Santa Fe. So it doesn't matter who it is.
What's beautiful about what you're saying is that, what's beautiful about what you're saying is, when we can check our ideologies, our narratives at the door and find the things that we can come together on. And in this case, it's honest, fair, accountable elections that are accessible for everybody, and when we can show, not just Democrats, but people on both sides of the aisle, that the tactics that are being used today to steal our government, to steal our constitutional rights away from us, are tactics that have been used in the past, even before the electronic machines. When you look at the voter fraud and the stolen elections, the way it was done in the old days, that basically disparaged even minorities, particularly, those same tactics are being used today to disparage all of us.
Yes.
John, I can't thank you enough for being on there. I really appreciate it.
That goes both ways. I appreciate the honor and the privilege to be on your live stream today. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. You and I have created a friendship over the last year that
Absolutely, we
I always
have.
appreciate and always respect. And anything I can do for you, I'll be happy to do it. Anything that I need, I know I can ask you for. I know you're there for me, and I appreciate
Right.
it. Thank you very much, my friend, and have a blessed day.
John, have a great night. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you later now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Kathleen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be with you.
Not only great to see you, it's been a couple months since I've seen you. Love your backdrop. Absolutely love. I love that. That's fantastic.
It's the front entry to my living area.
Yeah,
That's
I love it. I absolutely love that.
The Constitution. That's
Yep.
important.
I love, and then who is the veteran?
That flag was for my husband's father, who served
Okay.
in World War II.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, Kathleen, we're going to talk about your show in just a few minutes. But, as you know, in my Finding Freedom Forum, I believe that freedom is being lost in places that we don't even realize. And a lot of people, go, oh, our freedoms aren't being lost or stolen. But when I talk to more people and from all backgrounds, and in your case, you ran for Congress, you have your own show, you got a different perspective. But when I talk to people from different perspectives, I get all kinds of opinions. In your opinion, where do you think that we're losing freedom in America?
I think it's across the board in many places. One of the places I live in Arizona, so the border. We have an open border. We are not protecting our citizens, and so that's a loss of freedom. In schools, where parents should be the final decision maker on their kids' rights and what children are learning, we've lost freedom there. There's an indoctrination that's going on. We're losing freedom in terms of our manufacturing, in terms of our defense and how our tax dollars are spent. So I think if there's not an area right now in this country that we're not losing freedom.
See, that's I don't know that I could have said some of those things any better. When you talk about manufacturing freedom, no one's mentioned that before, and you're exactly right, because I think, and I'm gonna expound on a little bit. What comes to me when you say that is, our politicians in DC have created laws, or I'll say regulations. Actually, not even all of our politicians. A lot of it is the bureaucrats that work in these deep agencies that create these procedures and regulations that businesses have to abide by. So it's easier to ship those jobs, those manufacturing jobs and manufacturing overseas. So to your point, we lose manufacturing freedom. That's a great point.
Well, and I live in a state where we have mining, and we could mine for a lot of the minerals that we're going to other places for. So we could actually create, jobs in this country, not only in Arizona, but all across the West. And we have shipped those jobs off to China and other places. And um, we've got to do better for Americans right now. And so that's why we continue to fight that. My show is Issues Not Politics is our tagline. It's Winn Tucson. But
Yeah,
a lot of the issues, it's good to use your last name if you can.
I love
Uh,
it. Look, I do that.
exactly, right?
Exactly.
So it's important though that people understand this isn't being done to us. We have a say still. We still have representative government. Who we put in Congress matters. How they vote matters, and we have to be the most vocal that we've ever been in our lives. I've been in this country. I'm coming up on my Medicare official birthday in August. I will be 65. I hate admitting that, but I'll be
But
honest with your
but you know what?
listeners.
But yet you're inadvertently and actually you don't look 65. You look great.
Okay, that's why we're such good friends.
So keep doing whatever you're doing, because you know what it is? It's that fighting for freedom that's keeping you young looking.
Absolutely. This is everybody's fight. I think uh, you and I were brought up in a different generation. We had pride in America. We loved our country. We had God in our families mattered. And every aspect of American life, I believe, is under attack right now. And wherever people's passion are, we have to restore God in our families, God in our country. It's critically being attacked, and they're trying to minimalize everything that we do and actually mock. Um, and I've never seen such a time of good versus evil.
Kathleen, you mentioned something a few minutes ago. We kind of joked a little bit and and passed by too quickly, but you said your Medicaid birthday, right? Or your Medicare birthday. But
Medicare.
Medicare birthday, but you know what you did inadvertently? You pointed out another loss of freedom.
Oh my gosh, yes, medical freedom.
Because in America now, you must register for Medicare. You
Correct.
can't you can't say I don't want Medicare. I'm out of it. You have to register. You have to register for it. And why is that? Why do we have to register for Medicare? What if you don't want it? What if you don't
Well,
need it?
and if you don't, if you read the fine print, it says if you don't register at the point later on where you do register, you're going to be penalized for not registering now. So it's not a freedom. It's an absolute, you have to do it. It's a have
And
to.
exactly, and what'll end up happening is you'll end up you're if you have let's say you have really good health insurance. The
Right.
healthcare insurance company now has rules and regulations that they created along with the bureaucracies and the politicians to say, okay, Mr. Insurance Company, you're going to be the insurer, and I don't know how this all works because I haven't reached that birthday yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I have,
No, it's all
but
good. I'm teasing.
you know what? I'm learning from smart people like you. See, you're much smarter than me, and you're much more graceful about it than I will be. So I'm gonna learn from people like you that have done a lot better than me. But the point is that the insurance company, if you don't register, they're not going to pay your benefits. So we've lost a lot of choice in America. And that goes and that doesn't even talk about our flood insurance program. You can't buy flood insurance in America anymore without going through the federal government.
Right.
So it's yet another freedom that we've lost as a result of bureaucracy and stuff. So you made some great points. So Kathleen, what do you think we as Americans can do to protect our freedoms and liberties?
I think it's important for Americans to pay attention, to learn who is representing them, to make contact with their representatives, and take issues as they occur to those representatives. We mentioned our border. We have fentanyl. We have sex trafficking. We have human trafficking, human smuggling. The different curriculums in our schools, the forced transgenderism, for everything that is being forced upon us. And we should have freedom, as you so aptly put at the beginning.
Right.
These should be choices for us, not like COVID. That was a forced shutdown. People that lost their jobs if they didn't get vaccinated. We lost medical freedom. So every area where they're trying to take away freedoms, we as a people need to push back. The Constitution is very clear about our freedoms. We're just not using it. And we have to look to see who our judges are, and are they going rogue and not using the rule of law and the Constitution to enforce the freedoms that we do have, or are they doing some other hidden agenda? And I think there's a two-tier system of justice in this country right now that's pretty evident given the events of the last 2 weeks.
Exactly, and what's interesting is they're having a harder time using narratives and ideologies to cover that up. I keep hearing them. The left keeps upping their game. I keep hearing, well, the Republicans, don't want UFO. Like today, that I heard literally on the news, the Republicans don't want to have a select committee on UFOs because they want Biden's troubles to be in the forefront. And I'm going, what?
What?
Right. Now it's okay to talk about Area 51, right?
And if that is, see, and the reason they're saying that is because the third indictment of Trump didn't get the play out that they thought. But it's kind of like the sky is falling for the third time, right? So we just don't react. We're kind of numb to it. So that game is not working. By the same token, the testimony today appears to be pretty damning for the Biden family and continues to be. So, do we have double standards for the sitting president and his son? and the former president. It appears that we do. So that's where Americans can give voice. You still have a voice. We need to use our voice. We need to have those discussions.
Kathleen, what's really upsetting to me is because I have a lot of people that are on the left or Democrats that are friends, and I have a lot of people on the right that are, of course, that are Republicans that are friends, and I hear from both sides, the ones that are the never Trumpers, don't like, or the ones
Right.
that don't like even Republicans, and what bothers me is that their hatred of Trump is so great that it gives them a reason to be okay with what the Bidens are doing.
Well,
Their hatred for one president is so great that it's okay that the other guy does wrong things because it's not as bad as what Trump did in their opinion. And that's what's really bothers me, because I go, wait a minute, if we're gonna be a country of fairness or equity, as they like to say, then we've got to have equity in our laws on both sides, right?
yes, justice is blind. And the fact that people don't like President Trump, there's things that he's done I don't like, but I would say forget the personality. If you're voting on a personality, then you've missed the entire point of why this country is great and why it's existed for 250 years. We didn't like some of our other presidents that we've had in the past, and there's a whole list of them. But but what we should look at is what was America like under the Trump presidency, whether you liked him or not. Our borders were secure. We weren't in wars. We weren't hemorrhaging money. We that the pull out of Afghanistan. There's so many bad things that this administration has done that has damaged the reputation and the strength of America. So forget Donald Trump for a moment.
Right.
Look at what your life is like now versus 3 years ago. Clearly, it is not the same, and everyone is so hyper politicized, even inside the Republican Party. So it's time that we look at what is the issue, what is the problem we're trying to solve. Bring your Democrats, bring your independents, bring everyone to the table. Let's start exchanging ideas versus identities. The identity
Right.
politics has consumed all the oxygen in the room, and it's time that we solve problems. And one of the reasons I would um, suggest that Donald Trump did such a good job is he was a businessman. He was used to
Right.
solving problems. You may not like him, he's a New Yorker. A lot of New Yorkers get a bad
Right.
rap. So, but I think Joe
Well,
Biden's an embarrassment.
so what are you doing, Kathleen, to protect freedom and liberty in America? Before my next guest comes on here in a couple of minutes,
Yes.
what are you doing to protect freedom and liberty in America?
Well, one of the things I'm on Winn Tucson every morning in Tucson, 10:30 a.m. The Voice, and I love that. Issues not politics. But when I'm not on the air, I have a nonprofit, Project 25, and we look to bring resources to law enforcement, technology, facial recognition, AI, things because our law enforcement they're all undermanned, and anything we can do to help them, the bad guys have all the tools. Uh, this last week, tomorrow, no, Wednesday will be a week that we found Alicia Navarro walked into a police station. We've been on
Mm,
that case for almost 4 years with mom. Her daughter went missing at age 14. She's now 18. It appears as though a 32-year-old male, when she was 14, groomed her away. She didn't run away, she was groomed away. And we have that happening all over the country. So we need to continue to create awareness. Sound of Freedom's done a good job to remind us that we have a horrific profit center going on where we're selling human beings. And if you
right.
want to talk about loss of freedom, we have that going on. And America is the greatest consumer of pornography, of sex, and sexual perversion right now with our next generation. So that's what I'm working on, and I think it's a valid cause, and we are grateful for the miracle that God bestowed on us to bring this girl back alive, and
Amen.
we're hoping for reunification very soon. So the work we do matters, and it matters to the people of America. And I'm proud to be able to be a small part in trying to continue to fight against these criminal enterprises that exist in our country that are pretty much cartel driven and funded by the CCP.
Kathleen, how can people find more about you on listen to your shows or find out
Yeah.
more about your organizations?
So Project 25 is project info at project25.org. I have a website for that. My show is Kathleen Winn Tucson, and you can find me on 10:30 a.m. The Voice. We are in Tucson, and we're an AM station, and I'm on every day, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 10. We do great interviews, and and you can listen to all my podcasts. So I'm the only woman on from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. So it should be pretty easy to
I
find.
love it, Kathleen. It's amazing. Kathleen, thank you so much for coming on today. And I want to have you back on more on a regular basis because, every time I meet you, I go, I need her on because I know how much you're fighting for freedom and how you're able to put the narratives and ideologies aside to focus on those solutions
Yeah.
like we talked about here. Thank you so much.
Freedom for everybody. Thank you, William,
I
for
love
the
it.
opportunity. Have a great night.
Thank you, Kathleen. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye.
Hey, how are you there, Nick? What's going on, man?
I'm blessed, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. Anytime I get a chance to bring you on, I think this is your third time on the show, and I gotta tell you, I'm grateful that you come on my show for multiple reasons, which I think people are going to find out, here. I love that you have the free CalvinGibbs.com up. I think it's important. We'll bring that up first before we start asking questions, because I love that you keep his name out there. Thank you very much for that.
God is good. Thank you for having me on your show.
So now talk to me, Nick. What is it? Where do you think is it? And now I referred to you a few minutes ago. Now I got to tell you, because when I asked you about what told you the questions where we're losing freedom in America, you kind of said, "Are we losing freedom in America?" So I'm thinking I'm gonna get a different perspective from you. Do you think? Well, where do you think we're losing freedoms in America, or maybe you don't think so?
I think most of all, our POWs in our own country have been forgotten. There are our war fighters that sacrificed their lives overseas, and they are sitting incarcerated in Leavenworth right now. And people don't want to talk about it. It doesn't make the news. And we are pushing a Warfighter Protection Act. And this current administration is talking about going back in time retroactively and prosecuting drone operators, artillerymen, tank operators, helicopter pilots, drone pilots, whatever. They are talking about craziness right now. And so we need to nip this in the bud. I think that we enjoy a lot of freedoms in this country and we don't even realize it. I've been incarcerated myself for something I did not do and served 6 years and 3 months as a prisoner of war in my own country. And so
You were at Fort Leavenworth too, weren't you?
no, sir, I was in federal custody because I was a civilian contractor.
Okay, that's right. So I invite people to go listen to that interview we did a while back that tells you a story about how when you were a civilian contractor, you were protecting, I think, a diplomat or a person of authority in some way or another. And when you came under fire, you fought back. Is that the right story?
Yes, sir.
And but basically, that they jailed you for, for protecting who you're doing your job, basically, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right.
And you're able to tell, and there's a lot of other servicemen, a lot of other veterans that are being incarcerated right now for similar crimes. We've talked about that, on this show. So you think that is the number one way, in your opinion, where we're losing freedom in America?
I think that it's all about the forgotten people. We have to take care of the ones who can't take care of themselves. I really feel like that. And, our war fighters, they put their lives on the line. They suffer still to this day from traumatic brain injuries, from PTSD. Every day, all day, we suffer. And so I really believe that this country needs to do something on the front end and be like, no more prosecutions based on politics. That needs to be law. And so if you really want to protect people's freedom, I think that's a really good place to start, is with the guys who are willing to lay down their lives for the country.
And I'm going to expound on that a little bit because, That's one reason I've enjoyed talking to you. And you're bringing up something that no one else has brought up. And you've never been on my Finding Freedom forum. So you're getting a chance to bring up something that I haven't had on here before, which is I'm just kind of summarizing it. Freedom is being lost in America by the veterans who stood up for our Constitution, who fought for our freedoms, or who were sent into battle because of whatever war was going on that whatever president thought was necessary to get our veterans involved in. And when they did their job or came under fire, they got thrown in prison because of mostly for political reasons. Is that a good way for me to summarize it?
Yes, sir. It just depends on who the president is, what is considered a war crime. I would challenge anybody that is a naysayer on this. Um, I think they should let everyone go, even the ones that are so-called guilty, because if you look at the rules of engagement under the Bush administration versus the Obama administration, the whole tactic changed. So they were doing village stability operations in Taliban controlled regions under the Obama administration. So basically, you're riding around and you are trying to get the Taliban to quit being Taliban, going to their village and giving them money and food and stuff. And
So
so,
basically, you're sent in there with guns, but you're delivering food and cash. And then when you get fired under, you're supposed to just surrender and die. And but if you do defend yourself, or in that case, for some of the stories that you've told me and Bull Gerfin told me with UAP, you're trying to protect your men or your women, or you're fighting your troops. You get sent to jail, and that is somewhere where we're losing freedom in America, in your opinion. Now, I'm saying this, I'm not trying to feed this to you, but I wanted to make a point that I thought about that I think is important to note, which is the more of our veterans that we lock up, the more of our veterans that we take away their freedom because they were protecting themselves or their fellow troops, the more we in America will lose freedom, because we're not going to have people who are willing to go fight for our Constitution and fight for our country and fight for our fellow man when we really need it, if they keep prosecuting and jailing our veterans for the wrong thing.
that's right. It's the cost of war, and Louisiana is really leading the way on that with the warfighter protection and amnesty. So they're trying to make that a national thing, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. Like Republicans and Democrats should both get behind our troops. If we've released 5,000 members of the Taliban from prison, why do we have anybody that's locked up that belongs to us? It just doesn't make sense to me. And some of the cases that I've dug into, Calvin Gibbs, for example, he's the one that I like to bring up the most, because this guy's actually innocent. And he's sitting in prison for getting shot at and shooting back. And that's it. Like you're talking about, he did his job and they disagreed with how he did it. There's no way that our fighting men and women should have to choose between a casket or a prison cell. When
That's exactly right.
we send them to war, they should know that we have their backs no matter what. And that's all that we want. We want a law that prevents any kind of political prosecution of our men and women that go over there and fight for our country. It shouldn't even be on the radar of anybody. And for them to talk about, what is really scary is they're talking about going back in time and going after drone operators and special operators.
When did this come out?
It's been in several reports that we've looked up, and there's a lot of groups that are like lobbyist groups that are Democratic run that are pushing this kind of agenda, and I just want it stopped, because I don't want them to be able to do to somebody else what they did to me. You know, they went after me for politics, and that was it. When Bush was president, case got dismissed. I had a fair judge. And then when Obama picked it up, guess what happens? Re-indictment.
That's right.
found me guilty. So it was just like, it just depends on who the president is, whether it's a war crime or not. If you get shot at and you're in a combat zone, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to shoot back. And literally, there's been tons of soldiers that have had to make a split-second decision, and some of them were afraid to shoot because if they got it wrong, they'd go to prison, and then they got blown up. So think
Right.
about the Afghanistan withdrawal, right?
Right.
They weren't allowed to shoot. They were afraid to shoot. And it's just like, why would you do that to your men and women? Like it's a failure of leadership, and it's a failure of command and control. When you've
And
got
it's
you're in charge of the guys on the ground that have never been shot at, have never had to go into a combat situation, they shouldn't be making the calls. It should be the guys on the ground that actually have done the grunt work before. They know what's going on, so we have to cut our guys a lot of slack, and we have to protect them because they are, like you said, they're the backbone of our country. If we don't stand up for them, what would make the next generation want to go to war if we had to go to war again, right?
That's right. Like I said, it's a huge loss of freedom, not just only for the veteran, but for Americans, because if we keep prosecuting, our military for doing their job and getting and then of course, as politics get blown, get thrown in there, that if we don't stop that from happening, we're not going to have people to want to put their life on the line to protect freedom in America for people back at home. I want to ask you a couple quick questions before our next guest comes on. One of which is, what do you think that we can do to protect freedom in America? And I'm going to ask you additional question to that. Can the people do anything to help free people like Calvin Gibbs or other veterans that are in jail right now? Can the people do something? And what can we do in your opinion?
First off, you go to freecalvingibbs.com, you check out his story, think about it, pray about it, and then you get involved. You contact your local state senators, then you contact your federal representatives as well, and you just let them know that this is ridiculous and you want something like Louisiana has done. Louisiana leads the way in everything that has to do with our soldiers. They come out with all kinds of stuff to try to free these guys, to try to protect future people from being prosecuted. So it's like, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for all y'all.
I love it. Well, we got to. Let me tell you something. Without going too much detail, there's a lot of legislators that I know in the legislature here in Baton Rouge, and they love our veterans. Many of them are veterans themselves, and let me tell you something. Whenever a bill comes up that has something to do for the veterans in there, they are all over it, as we say in New Orleans, like white on rice. So Nick, you have a book. From what I hear, what's your book about? I know it's ultimately going to protect freedom in America. That's why I want to make sure you get that out. But tell us about that book.
So y'all can go to Raven23 on Facebook, and there's a press release about it. It's just going to be about our story. They are currently writing it now. HarperCollins is the publisher. They picked us up, and they're just going to lay it all out, what happened and how it was a political prosecution and just what our judicial branch is capable of if the executive branch, puts its thumb on the scale, so to speak. So it is really crazy. My life is a conspiracy theory, and sometimes I don't even believe it, but just check us out, Raven23 on Facebook.
I just now have it scroll at the bottom there, Raven23 on Facebook. And when this video replays, everybody else is going to get a chance to see it.
God bless you.
I tell you what, we're going to keep Calvin Gibbs in our prayers. And I'll say this before I have to go to the next guest, because it's not just about Calvin Gibbs. Calvin Gibbs is only an example of all the military that are locked up for doing their job to protect our Constitution, that got thrown in jail for political purposes only. And when people hear, we don't have time to tell those stories now, but if they go back with our other interviews, and we'll do more here in the future, they can see it for themselves, right?
That's right, sir. I really
Nick,
appreciate
thank you so much for being on there. I really appreciate it.
God bless you. Have a good day, sir.
God bless you too. Have a great night. Bye-bye. Hey, Roman, how are you, sir?
Hey, William, thank you so much for having me on the program.
You're absolutely welcome. I'm glad you came on there. I've been having your business card, on me for a while, and I said, this is somebody perfect to be on my Freedom Forum. And I remember the conversation with you, and I said, you know what? We're going to do that tonight and talk about where we're losing freedom in America. Give you a chance to talk about it. But then in a few minutes, we're going to talk about what you're doing with the Madison Coalition to protect freedoms. Roman, how are you again?
I'm great. I'll tell you, this is every day in this country, it's an honor to be able to fight for freedom. And there's no time like the present to make things happen.
Well, this is kind of my task, to do what I can do to fight for freedom, because the more I've talked to people and the more I've looked at it, and I find out all the places that we're losing freedom, people aren't paying attention. And I'm going to repeat this over and over again. I've done it on multiple shows where I say people only think about a loss of freedom if you're pertaining it to the First Amendment or the Second Amendment. They don't even think about all the bureaucratic agencies that are creating rules and regulations that get to circumvent the Congress and our Constitution that we, the people, have to live by. What do you think, or where do you think we're losing freedom in America, in your opinion?
Well, I think there are three great threats to freedom right now. But the bottom line is that we have a group of politicians who are set on concentrating more power in Washington. And what we're missing are a group of politicians who want to take power out of Washington and give it back to the people. So you think, well, what kinds of power should we take out of Washington and give back to the people? And I would say there are three things we ought to start with. First of all, we got to take away the power of politicians to manipulate the size of the Supreme Court for political advantage. Second, we ought to take away the power of the bureaucracy to issue rules without the approval of Congress.
Love it.
Third, we've got to limit the power of Congress to borrow money and bankrupt the country. And all three of those limits ought to be done constitutionally, one at a time, the way we've done 27 other amendments. But more than anything else, we need leaders who want to take power out of Washington, willing to do something to make it happen. It's
amazing. Roman, I can already see that my 15-minute interview on my Freedom Forum is not going to be enough for you. So we're going to do a touch this today, and then we're going to have you back on soon for a longer version of what you all are doing. But what do you think that Americans do in the meantime to fight for freedom? What do you think that we can do to stop this power grab of freedom, and what can we do to stop it and protect it?
Well, I would argue that the left's most dangerous power grab right now is their stealth plan to pack the Supreme Court. Because every single issue that people who believe in our Constitution care about, whether it's protecting innocent life, or whether it's Second Amendment rights, or whether it's preventing the government from taking over the economy, or whether it's stopping an unconstitutional wealth confiscation tax, all of those issues depend on having an independent Supreme Court that will interpret the Constitution instead of a puppet Supreme Court that just does whatever Congress wants. And if the left wins in 2024, they will try to pack the court. And so our job right now is to expose that leftist plan to pack the court by asking every politician a very, very simple question. Not, do you want to pack the court, because they'll lie. Where do you stand on the Keep 9 amendment to the U.S. Constitution that was first introduced in Congress by a Democrat, now backed by 200 members of Congress. And all it says is the Supreme Court of the United States shall be composed of 9 justices. And any politician who won't endorse that amendment, we ought to demand that they do, or see them at the polls in November of 2024.
So an amendment to save 9, which is basically Mike Lee's book, Saving 9. Oh, I like that. Where'd that come from?
This is the little brochure that talks about the amendment. It just says Keep 9. The amendment's called Keep 9. And on the back
is Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
who said famously, 9 is a good number. So it's not just conservatives that think that 9 is a good number. We've got Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at least her spirit, on our side. And we've got 1,000 elected officials across the country who support this simple amendment to the Constitution. But almost no one in the public has heard about it. Now, our polling shows that when voters hear about a Keep 9 amendment to preserve 9 justices, by a more than 2-to-1 margin, they're for it. What we've got to do is we've got to alert the public that this amendment is out there, and then demand that politicians tell us where they stand. And we can't accept, I won't tell you, for an answer.
So when I ask the question, what do you suggest that people do that they can protect our freedoms and liberties in America and stop the power grab, you would probably say, after hearing you, that everybody needs to wake up and tell their congressmen, their senators, their legislators about this Keeping 9 amendment.
That's right.
Now, are you all working in the states to get, I'm going to say resolutions at the very least, but are y'all working in the states to get representatives to sign or to get legislation through that would call for, an amendment to the Constitution for Keeping 9?
Yes. So our strategy, first of all, we've got to get members of Congress to support this. We have 200 members of the House and Senate. We want more. Second is we've got to get governors to support it, because governors command publicity in their states. We've got to get attorneys general and lieutenant governors. And then we've got to get state legislators, because to get an amendment to the Constitution, after 2/3 of Congress proposes it, we need 3/4 of the state legislators. So basically, every politician running for office at the federal level or in major state offices, we need to support this amendment. We have 1,000 elected officials across the country right now. We have 19 state legislative chambers that have already passed resolutions urging Congress to propose the amendment, but they're 99 state legislative chambers. So we've got a lot more work to do.
That's amazing. So what else? What can people do to get involved with the Madison Coalition, or are you all working with people to help them get to that Saving 9?
So the best way to get involved is simply to go to our website, which is very simple, www.keep9.org. Or if you want faster results, you can email me at leaders@keep9.org. And I really do respond to my email, because this is about mobilizing individual freedom fighters all over the country. And we have a conference call for grassroots leaders for Keep 9 every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have dozens of people who are on that call. We have hundreds of people around the country who are active, but we need more. We're going to build a grassroots organization, just like the people. Whoa. Hello.
Oh, you're back on. You're back on.
Yep. Just like the folks who put through the amendment that gave women the right to vote, just like the folks who put through the amendment that imposed presidential term limits, we're going to get this amendment done, because the American people are for it. We just have to make it known and mobilize the grassroots support to make it happen.
Are y'all doing any work with Mike Lee on this?
Yes, Mike Lee is a real champion. Anybody who wants to learn about this issue should read Mike Lee's book, Saving 9, which talks about the history of 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and the history of the court and why an independent court is so important. So yeah, Mike Lee is one of our champions. Ted Cruz is actually the lead sponsor of our bill in the Senate. We have 30 United States senators who are in favor of this amendment already. We had a unanimous vote by Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee last week. who basically voted for Cruz's amendment to add this language to the bill that was going to be passed. So we've got a lot of support, but we don't have, there are 49 Republican U.S. senators and we only have 30. So we still have a lot of work to do. And again, if you go to our website, www.keep9.org, or email me at leaders@keep9.org, we can tell you what's going on in your state and your community and how you can be involved in this effort.
Well, when I have you back on to go into more detail about everything that you all work on, we're going to not only go do a little bit deeper dive into that, but also a deeper dive in what the Madison Coalition does. But before I let you go, do you have any other fears or ideas of where we're losing freedom in America besides the attack on the Supreme Court?
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, I think the unrestrained power of the unelected federal bureaucracy is a huge threat to freedom. For every regulation that the government imposes on us without a vote of Congress, bureaucrats can threaten 100. And when you're a businessman or you're a citizen, and you know that the government can take away your rights without a vote of the people, vote of your elected representatives, you're at the government's mercy. And so if we don't rein in the power of bureaucrats to essentially rule and intimidate by decree, we are in danger of permanently losing our freedom. And I think the solution there is a constitutional amendment, very simple amendment that we drafted with the help of Ed Meese, Reagan's former attorney general, that
Right.
Ted Cruz supports, that simply says that major new federal regulations have to be approved by Congress. So if we get this amendment done to stop court packing, then we can move to the next target, which is to rein in the unaccountable federal bureaucrats.
I love it. I love it. Roman, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Look, it's great to get the chance to reunite with you since I last saw you. And I'm going to look forward to bringing you on again really soon to go into do a more of a detailed description on what the Madison Coalition is. I know I've said that already, but the more I learn about it, the more I want people, to get to know you guys and how they can get involved.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your audience, and I'll look forward to joining you again.
Roman, have a great night.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
You bet.
Bye.
Bye-bye.